All right. Well, it's recording, so it's recording. Hopefully, this is going to be my second YouTube video. I haven't really watched the first YouTube video very good. Anyways, so what am I going to be talking about? Uh, well, I'm going to be talking a lot about family issues and unfortunately a lot about sexual abuse and stuff. That's what I'm trying to break silence on. Uh, my history, well, needless to say, I have a history of sexual abuse starting from really young. Uh, Ended up in foster care when I was 13 and a half, and I aged out at 19. Uh, I've been pretty public about my life, so I'm kind of comfortable talking about it. It's still difficult to think about naming names or talk about people. Uh, and, that's just one of the things that I want to talk about uh, is the difficulty of it. But I'll probably be pretty straightforward with names. Uh, I guess I don't feel like I have much to lose. It happened in my family, it happened in my tribe, and it happened in my village. Uh, it was severe, uh, and it's never been talked about. It's never been discussed with me. Unfortunately, I've been blamed for it, and that happened after I left into foster care. I found out later that the story was is that I had been raping people and all of this, and uh, that's kind of my story. So part of this is sitting that straight, but also a part of it is just reaching out to people who will live with a lot of silence. Uh, no, I think the hardest part for me is about talking about this is I really love my siblings, like and I'm proud of my family. Uh, but I'm also kind of pissed off. Uh, and it's a long story, I mean, it's this is coming out of a suicide of my oldest son too, who unfortunately was sexually abused, and that's another side of it. What's going on today with our kids, or what was going on with my kids when I was a young man, single dad, uh, and the role that uh, parents play in this sexual abuse. I hazard myself to even get into that. Uh, you know, I would say that while sexual abuse is viewed primarily as men doing things, my mom, she was all over my sexual abuse. She knew about it, she encouraged it, she pushed it on me when I was a young man, and she prostituted me to a man. My grandma that I first remember sexually abusing me, and that's a horror story. My older sister, a couple of women that I really don't know, some guys, uh, but women were all over in there too. And in my son's sexual abuse, no, his stepmom and his step grandma were all over that. That ain't talked about. So I guess I'm gonna expect people to not like what I say, but nobody's ever liked what I had to say when I talk about this stuff. So it's difficult. I guess I'm kind of scared doing this, and I kind of feel like I have to. I think the worst thing for me is not that I was sexually abused, it's that I was sexually abused and nobody ever talked to me about it. And my kids, they were sexually abused, and whatever the heck happened, happened. And for me, I just wanted to be able to talk to them about it. I didn't want them to have to be silent. I didn't want them to have to feel like I do. I tried really hard to set an example for my kids that it's okay to talk. That was one of the reasons I spoke up so much in public and why I'm comfortable with it because as a native dad, well, I was, I'm me. I remember being a little boy walking in my village bleeding. I'll never forget that. You know, I love my people and I got my respect for them. Well, I doubt I could show much love at this point, but you don't get forget things like that. And if you do, you do it at your own hazard. So I spoke up a lot, tried to teach my kids that. I really had hoped to be able to build something for myself and for other people where men have support. It's been rough. That's opposed quite a bit. Uh, so that's one of the hardest things about talking. It's not easy, and unfortunately, a lot of those fears are realized when we do talk. It's my family haven't received it well, never received it well. They've never appreciated it. They never even appreciated me talking to a counselor. So, considering all of these fears and concerns that I have, I guess the question would be, why the heck would I say anything? Why would I talk? Uh, could I go to counseling and heal? Could I become more Christian and heal? Am I unhealed as a Christian? Uh, Thus, am I a real Christian? Am I doing this because I'm mad at people? Uh, why am I doing this? Everybody always told me that the reason I wanted to talk is because I'm feeling sorry for myself and I want to blame my parents for my problems. Uh, no, I don't blame my parents for my problems because my parents had their own problems. And I'm Christian and I'm serious about it. So when Jesus says don't judge, uh, I might not be able to understand them and I might never be able to really accept what they did as okay. And I don't think I'm supposed to. Uh, but that doesn't mean that I'm judging them. They had their own issues. I was one of their kids. I don't agree with what they did, but well, while I never did anything to my boys, it's not like I was a perfect dad. And I never judged my parents. I think I've always been in conflict with their memory. It was them that ins- instigated a lot of these things, and it was them that lied about me and called me a rapist, something that my tribe, my people, and my family decided to reinforce. But I guess I just figured they had their issues. I don't excuse it. And I just recognize that parents can fail. My parents failed me, and that's just where I'm at. And God says, don't judge them. And He says, try to understand them. And He said, honor them. So I try hard to honor their memory. I guess a lot of it is being their son and being the person who will speak the truth. I mean, if you want to judge my mom, you know, be careful because my mom is First Nations. You know, I mean, that's a bad thing I see a lot of is like the church and stuff. Look at us Native people like we're past backwards. We're First Nations, you know. Don't forget where this comes from. You know, maybe the church could forget. Ain't none of those natives forgot. I should have hell didn't forget. My mom didn't forget. None of my people forget that. So even if I say things, be careful of judging people. I think a part of this is I feel prepared to, protect my mom's name and my dad's name, and you know, the names of anybody I speak. I guess I say if I speak their name and you want to shame them, then you probably should talk to me first. Because I wouldn't say nobody's name if I'm not able to at least justify their right to be God's children and to be forgiven and to be loved and to be treated with respect. And that even goes for Herbert, that guy that molested my boys. You know, you want to judge him, and if anybody thinks I'm trying to judge him, I would say it's not like a young native man was out there raping little native boys for nothing. You know, I know where his shit come from. Herbert needs to understand that. It's not like I just been sitting around for 5 years, not looking around and asking questions about you. I know who is fucking you, so you could talk to me about it you want. So I guess a part of speaking is just being able to have compassion for people and not just be angry, even if I am angry at times. I also think it's important to speak the truth because, well, if we don't, we ain't gonna change. And that's, you know, if you got an alcoholic loved one, if you're native, you most likely do. Anyways, or if you're white, you could say, I don't know, heroin or meth addicted loved one. It all hits everybody. But, when you look at them and you just throw your hands up and say, if you can't admit you have a problem, you're not going to change, and you're just going to drink yourself to death, and your family's going to hate you and all of this shit. It's like that being silent. It's exactly how it is. And I speak because I don't hear anybody else speaking. And I think that's important because there's so much in this world that tells us don't speak the truth and don't talk about this. But there's every reason in the world to talk about this. I'll tell you this much. I come from a family that never talk about this. I come from a people that never talk about this. I did everything I could. I quit drinking when I was 22. The day I found out my son was going to be born, that's when I quit drinking. That's what kind of man I am. I was a frickin' straight up demon about protecting my boys. I turned my own sister in, my older sister. I turned her in and told her to her face, "Don't fucking target my boys." still, still, I gotta wake up in the morning one day and start learning shit. I'm angry about that because I really tried to break silence and get people to talk about it. And the people I trusted a great deal, they never talk about it. And I thought it was okay that they never talk about it. And I thought I could raise my kids around people like that. It'll be okay. I found out, nope, nope, can't even trust them if they don't want to talk about it. Say, my son, he never talked about it. He never talked about it for 5.5 years. His family never talked about it. Nobody said a damn word. I asked native leaders for help too. Never talked about it. Shot himself in the head with a 9 millimeter. Laid there for 15 days, breathing his last breath. Skull in 9 pieces. Took it. They never talk about it yet. You know, I worked as a counselor for a long time. I seen a lot of this and this, a lot of men, because I was a public speaker about it, and I talk about it at TCC convention and stuff like that. And I talk about my own history. A lot of men talk to me. A lot of those men struggle like hell with drinking, suicides, can't keep a woman, can't stop fucking around, you know. We never talk about it. My son was the same way, just like me, he turned out. Oh, everybody kept telling me, Ray, you're okay, Ray, you're okay, all my life. I was never okay. I was too scared of my family, too scared of what was going to happen if I tell the truth. Carry all that lies on me, just be angry. It's hard to be a good person when you're having to live a lie. It took me a long time, to learn that it was that was bothering me. By the time I was 19, I learned it, but I started counseling when I was 13. I was serious about it. When I was 19, I knew I was an alcoholic, and I knew why, and I knew what I was caught in. I didn't know how the hell to get out. I was felt like I was a fish in a fishnet for drowning or something. It really sucked. Because I felt really guilty because everybody told me I was just feeling sorry for myself. I just needed to get tougher, get over it. But they say forgive and forget, turn the other cheek. What cheek are you talking about? Anyways, I guess if I would say anything, whatever saved me from that childhood, it was being able to speak. And we don't get to be our true selves when we can't tell the truth. You know, I know my family wants to love me for me, and they want to love me for the good brother I am. Whatever the hell that means. I want them to love me for me, you know? I mean, I can't help it that I was abused in their family. And I can't help it that I was abused by their mom and dad. I just want that for myself, you know. I want my family to accept me as I am, not as they want me to be. You know, I want them to want me to be okay so I'll have a good life. I don't want them to want me to be okay so it's not their fucking fault or their problem. And if I'm not okay, do what my mom did since I was 5. Tell me to kill myself, try to take my life. And I guess never saying that, never laying it out there, never just stabbing that slowly dying horse, kicking that slowly dying horse in the middle of the goddamn living room. You know, say it. And you know, I have to ask myself why people are so afraid of what I have to say. You know, and I would say I speak my mom's name and I speak my dad's name and I talk about it because I could justify it. Not justify it and say it was okay, so it doesn't matter, but to say, look, this is what we come from. Accept it. Don't deny it. You could love your mom and your dad, your abusers. You could love them. You don't have to hate them. Hating them is a choice. That doesn't mean that you can't be upset about it. You can't be angry about it. And I dare anybody to tell me that the right thing to do in this situation is to be quiet and say nothing. I think a lot of people are just so ashamed that it happened to them. I think they struggle with being ashamed of their abusers. You know, in early recovery, you're ashamed of yourself. You hate yourself. That's why you do dumb shit, like try to drink yourself to death. That's why young people drink and drink and drink and die. Hate themselves for doing what they did or for whatever the fuck happened. They hate other people too. They don't hate themselves. And then when you realize you don't have anything to be ashamed of, and that it was choices of other people, you're gonna be mad, but you're gonna be ashamed of them. And if it's your dad, your mom, your sisters, your uncle, your grandma, if it happened in public and people didn't do nothing and never stopped it and then blamed you for it, you're gonna have a lot of people to feel ashamed for because that's shameful behavior. That's what we come from. Every one of those people, every one of them, they got their history like I do. Mom, all my brothers, sisters, three, probably four of my kids, my ex-wife, my other ex-wife, both of the mothers to my children. As a matter of fact, every mother to my child, be they legitimate or otherwise. Grandbabies are surrounded by, because it's not just my family. Trust me, I know grandpa. Take the time to look and ask questions. And I already know a whole lot more than a lot of people know. That ain't a threat or nothing. That's just saying I ain't blind. Well, what do I want out of this? I guess I want a conversation. I guess I'm demanding to be heard. And I'm demanding a conversation. It's not just my family that goes through this. It's not just Native people that go through this. We're just particularly hit hard by it. There's reasons for that. Take a look at them. Talk about those reasons. If we're able to see them without being too ashamed to talk about it, I think we can start to overcome them. I guess I also want people to know that you ain't alone. And what you're going through isn't unique to you. It's not. I want you to know that sexual abuse and child abuse, period, it's complicated. It touches all parts of your life. And I guess maybe this is also to younger people, my son's age. One of the things that I'm very angry about is that nobody ever built nothing for me as a man. My tribe never stood up for me. They never defended me. I was 13 years old and I named six people who sexually abused me. Prostitution, too. Nobody was prosecuted. No one. No one. Nothing. And I was in OCS care. And because no one was prosecuted, because there was never a police investigation done, because they treated it like it was nothing, my family was able to go back to my village and sit the story that I was in foster care for raping people, raping my sister, they said. Well, what a crock of shit. I've always been angry about that, and I'm getting angrier about it as time goes on. You get away for a while and you realize what it costs you in life to be treated that way and to allow people to treat you that way. You're going to have a time of anger. It happens. Don't act on it. I don't like it that my son lived in a world where he couldn't talk to his dad about what happened to him and about his life and his journey. as a sexually abused man. It's not the end of the world, you know. I have a decent life. I'm in love. I serve Jesus. I pray. I have money. I have a car. I have a decent, good life. Woman I'm with loves me well. I'm blessed. Life may have been hard. It's not the end of the world, you know. I would say this much. Whether we want it or not, what was done was done. Whether we want to admit it or not, what was done and how we were raised really did impact us. We all know kids learn from watching and seeing, not from listening. I don't care how many times you tell a kid it's okay to talk. If you beat the crap out of them when they do, well, they just start to learn the cues better, you know? Learn how to hide it so good that they don't even know that it's you that's silencing them. They think it's them. It's complicated what we do when we stay silent. And I think it's too hard for us to really look at that without being able to have enough healing in ourselves, enough humility, enough understanding, and enough compassion and empathy for ourselves and for those who abuse us. We need those things if we're going to look for a better way. And if we're going to actually really talk about the cost of being silent and the cost of talking, because there are costs on both sides. I have no idea what people will do if their kids start talking like I do. Some hard things as a dad that I had to walk through. Really hard things. Wake up in the morning to a text message from your son, sexually abused, you know, confirming it with your other son. It was a hard morning, man. It's like learning about my other boy. We gotta stop and think about how this shit spreads in our families, too, you know. I guess I don't want to repeat my parents' mistakes. I don't want to repeat my people's mistakes and my grandfather's mistake. I respect my grandfather, respect my elders. Doesn't mean that I'm going to be held down by that respect. Pass this on. God willing, one day, my grandkids will look back on these days and say, holy cow, there was a time where people wouldn't even say a word. Anyways, that's that video.